Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Quick reminder, if you enjoy Hardin Local, hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you're watching. And if you haven't seen it yet, we've got our brand new website at hardinlocal.com. Episodes, articles, events, sponsors, everything Hardin Local in one place. This Hardin Local with Hardin County Government series is also available as a standalone podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can find it by just searching our brand Hardin Local, and then it should be attached to that one. If not, I'll make sure to add that specific podcast link to the notes or comments in this stream. And if you want the latest from county government, follow Hardin County Government on Facebook. That's even easier to find. Just type in Hardin County Government and make sure you find the one with the logo behind Brian's head over there. And don't look for the one in a different
state. There are others.
Yeah, just make sure it is the legit one, and we'll make sure to put all those links, comments. All right, I want to do a quick subscriber walkthrough before we get started. HardinLocal.com is new, and before we dive into this episode, I want to walk you through subscribing to Hardin Local. It's completely free. It takes a minute. So if you got your phone, grab it and follow along, or just, if you got a good memory, you can remember this. But, if you have a minute, I'll talk slow. Go to hardinlocal.com. And when you get there, there'll be a button that says subscribe or join at the top, also at the bottom. Click that button, give us your name and your email address. Now, this is the part that some people forget to do. But after you do that, it's going to say, go to your inbox and find the email from us. And you got to click a link to confirm. If you can't find that email, check your, if you're in Gmail, check your newsletter tab or whatever they call it there, and move that thing to your inbox. If it's in your junk, move it to your inbox. Wherever you find that email, move it to your inbox, and then click on the link, and you're done. That way in the future, you will get emails from us, and we only send them out like once a week. It's a newsletter. Sometimes we'll send out announcements and other things as well, but not that often. And I'll make it real easy. If you only want the newsletter, in the near future, we'll have it to where you can say, I just want the news. But from here on out, anytime you come back, you just click the sign in button on Hardin Local, enter your email address, and we'll email you a link to sign in. And it's important to do because in the future, our newer content will be behind the subscriber only. It's free, but we'll have new content that, you can't see unless you're signed into the website. That's it. You subscribe for free. You get access to our subscriber only content, our weekly newsletter, and notifications whenever we've got something new coming, whether that be from the county government or whatever we got going on. And it'll also make sure that Facebook and all these big social media companies and their algorithms, that they can't, manipulate you from seeing our content, which, you never know what they're going to do. So go ahead and go over to hardinlocal.com and take the control back. I'll give you a second. All right, that was a second. Now let's dig in. Welcome to Hardin Local with Hardin County Government. I'm Phil Taul. This is our monthly series where we connect you directly with departments and people who serve Hardin County. This is episode 8 of season in the 25 to 26 season. And today we're putting a face to a job that touches every single one of you, even though most folks have never met the person who does it, the county engineer. Every road you drive, every bridge you cross, the way the water drains off your property, this office has a hand in it. Joining me is Mark Absher, the Hardin County engineer, and as always, our county communication officer, Brian Walker. Brian, before we get into it, what's going on with the county?
So this is breaking. This is not an exclusive. You're getting it first from this very moment. So I sent you a photo a few minutes ago, Phil, if you can access that. So that photo right there is very special. That photo has EMT Rhea Daughtery, paramedic Kimberly Holcomb, paramedic Logan Savage, and they successfully field delivered a newborn baby.
Wow.
And they're being presented there with the Stork Lapel certificate. Now that's something we do internally here with Hardin County EMS. So it gets even crazier. So field deliveries are a big deal because they don't happen very often, and we try to celebrate that. This was back on May 24th, and then again, we're issued a pin and a certificate. So the crazy thing is Rhea, the young lady on the left side of that photo, it was her first day of orient. So she was new.
Wow.
And then Kimberly, the person in the middle on that photograph, I think Phil's trying to put it back up. So the young lady on the left, it was her first day of orientation. Kimberly, the one in the middle, is a brand new paramedic. And then Logan, very young man there, he's got some experience, but it's not like he's some old man. This is I think this speaks to the caliber and the quality and the kind of folks we have working for our EMS, that even somebody who's kind of younger was able to have a successful delivery here. Here's a quote from Mark Peterson, our EMS director. He said, "We're very pleased to recognize these providers for a successful field delivery of a newborn baby. During delivery, it was discovered that the umbilical cord was actually wrapped around the child's neck. The crew quickly addressed the situation. It was atypical and delivered the child without any further complications. The mom and the baby are both doing great. It's not every day we get to help bring a new life into the world, and we are blessed that we have qualified providers to handle this situation without hesitation." So seriously, a moment of just a round of applause for Rhea and Kimberly and Logan. And we're going to make a bigger deal out of that. We'll get a post up later today, but I just got that information right before we went live, and I wanted to share it now because, you know, this is important to recognize when we make a win. So good job to those guys.
Yeah, great job.
Work at EMS. We do have some openings. You can find those at hardincountyky.gov. It's hardincountyky.gov. And that's where you can find applications for our jobs. We also have some openings in our 911 center. So that's about all I've got right now. But I thought that was pretty big.
Yeah, that is huge. All right, let me get this scene back the way it's supposed to be. All right. And there we go. All right. And just before I move on to introducing Mark, want to make sure you guys remember to follow Hardin County Government on Facebook, and also make sure you're familiar with the hardincountyky.gov website, which is hardincountyky.gov. And if you can't find the Facebook page, just go to hardincountyky.gov. I'm sure there's a link there, right? It's his Facebook page. I would assume or somewhere. And then also you can find out more about Hardin County jobs at hardincountyky.gov/job. So Mark, before we dig in to the work, give people a quick sense of who you are. How did you end up as a county engineer? What's your background, and how long have you been doing this for Hardin County?
Actually, my background is I went to a local small county in Butler County, and then I went to Western like you did, but I served in Air Force for 6 years prior to going to college. So when I got out of college, went to Western for pre-engineering, and then went from Western up to UK. And I did my undergraduate and my graduate work at UK. And in that area, I specialized in structural engineering. Sorry, my throat's getting scratchy. And I loved the aspect of structural engineering because it's like physics on steroids. And then I went back for my graduate coursework, and I did that in environmental engineering and traffic engineering. And then I worked in private sector for a very long time, and then ended up getting on with City of Bowling Green, and I was their stormwater and traffic engineer for 17 years. And I went to Division of Water after that and worked there for almost 5 years. And part of the time when I was in Lexington, I also worked for District 7 up there as their maintenance department. And then we moved to E-Town to get a little closer to the Bowling Green area because my mom was not doing great. And so when we moved here, the job came open, and I applied. I started a little over 2 years ago in March 2024, I believe.
That's cool. That's good information for us to know. Now, here's something you might not know. I don't know if you've talked to Judge Taul much about his engineering background, but you should ask him about his master's thesis. You should ask him about that if he hadn't told you. It's I think he spent a summer duct taping a calf to adult. He would duct tape this thing every few days, and his master's thesis was on the differentiating something to do with the square surface area of cows.
I could see him doing that. And his was agricultural engineering, I think. Yeah. And I actually went to a program with a lot of those guys because some of our graduate courses were in
I don't know that I want to know all this, quite frankly.
No. And it's a great program. One of my buddies is selling what we call wet pumps, where you go in and you collect your stormwater and you pump it out. And he
Mhm.
went through that program, and we
Yeah.
actually did the landfill design based off of that program. It was taught by the agri engineering
That was
department there.
interesting because that's where he
Yeah,
was at that egg
yeah,
engineering at UK. So
yeah.
yeah, I thought it was funny what you talking about your different engineering at UK. It just popped into my head. So
Yeah, no, it's there's quite a few different areas in civil engineering, but there's also mechanical, chemical, electrical, and
Mhm.
biomedical is kind of more of a newer field. But it was cool to find out he was actually an agriculture engineer from UK.
Yeah, I think so. Even though he was mostly in automotive for most of his
Yeah,
career. So, but it was
yeah.
interesting. But
To,
go ahead.
no, to end up doing that too, and then I think he went to Japan a few times, actually quite a few
Oh yeah,
times. Yeah,
there's a lot of times back in the day. But anyway, enough about my father. And I think we just had
yeah. We
a
just
drop
lost
from Brian.
somebody.
Well, Brian will be back. We can move on, and when he gets back, he'll get back. So segment one, here he is. I'll have him back in. You're back. I had the similar thing happen a few minutes ago. Let's check the comments, guys. You can put comments in here if you have any questions or anything as we're going. We'll try to get to them if we have time. Stephen Rowley just said, "Way to go, way to go, Stephen. Thanks for joining us." So, what a county actually engineer does is this segment one. So let's start simple because I think most people genuinely don't know. In plain terms, what is the county engineer responsible for day to day?
With me being a civil engineer and my background in that, we cover just about everything you imagine from the engineering side. Like when you get a new subdivision in, they'll do the design. It goes through planning and development to be introduced, and then I'll do the review process where I'll look at the storm drainage, make sure it meets our ordinance requirements, look at the roadway to make sure it meets our pavement requirement, and we'll look at the overall design and the layout and stuff. And then we also do any kind of commercial sites that come in. We review those and then also respond to questions about traffic concerns that people have, like speeding, things like that. And then I'm also looking at our sign status. We have a 1,500-page book called the MATCD, and we rely on that pretty heavily. And you want to be compliant with that because it saves lives by being compliant. My biggest background at Bowling Green was to rely on the MTCD and try to introduce that. There's also a few other books. There's five or six reference books that we use, but also I'm also the floodplain manager for the county. A lot of engineers do both, but here that's what I end up doing, and I work with planning and development. What we try to do is keep people from building stuff in floodplains, and if they do, they have to meet FEMA requirements in order to do that construction. And so I'll determine how many feet above the ground they got to be in order to meet that, and then all the requirements from FEMA for that. And then two, if we have a home that gets destroyed or takes a lot of damage and they want to try to cover it with their insurance and just have it removed, then I'll work through the process with them for that on the whole step by step to remove that. And then on the county side, I'm also working with the road department a lot. Those guys are great to work with, and we're working together on pavement analysis. So I help pick which roadways we actually pick out to try to maintain. And then bridges too, we monitor those. We get a report from the state, and I put all those reports into a spreadsheet to kind of track where we are on those and kind of monitor them. And then we prioritize those from worst to middle to the good ones. And I'm not sure what else to go over.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot. I have plenty
Yeah.
of questions. There are a lot of kind of engineers, mechanical, chemical, aerospace. You're a civil engineer. Why
Right.
does the county road and bridge work need that specific special? Why can't you just hand it to any engineer?
Well, with civil engineers, I don't know if most people know about the Romans, and that's where civil engineering actually originated from, is civilization. It's just a short way of going civilization. So we're civilization engineers. So if you want an infrastructure, you want stuff that maintains the whole entire systems, like there's civil engineers that work over at Hardin Water District and E-Town and things like that. And they do a lot of things that regarding just maintaining an entire system. Like when I worked at Division Water, I was this engineering supervisor for the wastewater municipal section. And so I had 3 people write all the permits for the entire state for wastewater treatment plants. I had a guy that did the EPSC requirements and a lady that did our pretreatment programs. And so civil really kind of covers a lot of different areas. And your training is specifically for maintaining those systems. Like aerospace, you wouldn't want someone like that coming in and trying to do road work. But all the engineers all kind of meet the same basic core math, and more math.
Yeah, math.
Yeah.
I have a question from Stephen Woolley. It's like, any considerations for a pumping station near Hawkins Drive to push water to a safe area to prevent flooding? I don't know if that's a simple thing for you to answer or not, but
It's not really a simple answer for me because a lot of those areas are considered private property. But we have tried to work on a few things in the Sonora area because when you get those sinkholes that back up, they don't flow. You get a high demand flow rate coming in, and they just can't handle the amount of flow. In Bowling Green, we have sinkholes that we actually develop into what we call dry wells and things like that. And when they're injection wells, we have over 2,000 of those to try to empty that water into those storm systems. So as far as pumping, that's great, but you want something a little more reliable than just pumping, especially if people building their homes anywhere near these things. You don't want that to fail overnight. You can look at Louisiana and what happened down there when their pumps stopped working.
During that big hurricane.
Well, when you build a whole city in a bowl,
right?
Yeah,
Right. And you're relying on the pumps to empty the bowl.
Would you, if you, as a modern engineer, would you design New Orleans in a hole beside the ocean? I mean, like, they wouldn't even do that now.
No, I'm not up for that kind of challenge. I'm leaning more to the conservative side.
The area the gentleman was just referring to, I believe quite a bit of that is actually city property and city roads along that Hawkins.
Yeah.
He does have a very good point, though. That
was a question. And I know their home was flooded during that last flood. So
that one is quite unique in that that's what they call a 100-year flood, if I'm correct, Mark. And so, Trooper Lake and it's escaping my mind the name of the other lake that are out there kind of sitting in that little intersection of the interstate and downtown E-Town and all that. Both of those overflowed their banks, and then all of the drainage basins and ditches and all the things that are supposed to carry that water out. No amount of planning, pumping, draining, nothing was going to stop that. It just, yes, Stephen, you're right. It was absolutely an anomaly. But I'll tell you something a lot of people don't realize. That part of E-Town, basically from about where I-65 crosses over Dixie up through that Hawkins Drive area, there are a ton of karst anomalies and caves. There's actually a couple of caves on city property that are not open to the public and they're not in plain view, but they're back in there, and they, by their very existence, can and do act as a way to drain, but they're not, they're not piped or anything like that. So it's Mark can speak to that way better than I can, but it is a very interesting place to live. Especially as you're trying to make developments, and then you get these things that pop up you never would have thought of, like, hey, there's a sinkhole out here.
Yeah, I'm piggybacking off what Brian had just talked about. I see a lot of areas that actually is your drainage structure. It's just an open throat sinkhole where water, I can look at the blue line streams, and then you can see them trace, and where it terminates, it's 99% of the time that's going to be a sinkhole. And it's been amazing to see that up here, whereas in Bowling Green, we tap into that all the time. And we've got to establish criteria for making that happen. But up here, you'll see. And that's one of my biggest concerns, because if one of those don't drain, like for some reason somebody decides, hey, I'm going to stop that thing up. Nobody uses it. And all of a sudden, the entire area starts getting backed up with water because somebody didn't realize that was a critical sinkhole location for a lot of water. I think the state has even used some of these sinkholes to try to let water just drain into those. And part of that thing is you want to try to protect those things too. You don't want a bunch of sediment going in there and clogging that thing up. You don't want to punch a bunch of junk in there either, because that gets into our water system.
Well, it's not legal either. I mean, people throw
it's absolutely not legal.
Pallets and garbage. And
what's at stake if this kind of work that you do isn't done by someone with specialized training? I'm guessing there's safety, liability, longevity, and other.
There is, there's safety. The biggest problem you run into is, again, back on the safety. If you're not putting the right kind of signs up, sign work is a communication device, and that's the reason we call it the METCD. It's a unified traffic device throughout the entire country, and we all agree a stop sign should have this shape, these colors. Otherwise, you start running into different people doing different things. And so, like, if you go through into a neighborhood and it's a black sign with white letter, and you're not quite sure what it is, other than you see the great big stop, but it takes a while to kind of communicate that to your brain while you're driving down the roadway.
Okay. Let's give people a sense of scale. I'm told, the county maintains somewhere around 600 miles of road, and there's a lot of confusion about which roads are even county roads, state, county, city, or private. I know that me and Brian were talking about it. We thought it'd be a good time to remind people what, the different signs, since we were just talking about signs. Like, how do you know if it's a county road versus city versus state road?
Yeah, the quickest, easiest way, and what I learned because I'm not from this area, is just look for the sign, the name of the sign on the street. Ours are typically green, whereas a lot of cities have their own colors. So E-towns are all white. The other issue you run into is the state routes normally have numbers with them. And then two, a lot of theirs are pavement marked, like you'll see center line, edge line. And then two, another kind of a cheap method is you can look at the pole, the sign pole, and if it's like their little square pegs, that's going to be usually one of the cities or the state. And ours are on what called U-channel pegs. And so, if you look over a sign, you see it's U-channel. Some of the older state signs are that way, but most have all switched to the square peg.
Well, a good example would be like Hardinsburg Road, which is also Highway 86. Is that a state road or a county road?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a state road, but our road guys are going to be like, Mark, no.
I think, I think you're right. I mean, it does have a highway
number. It's not a hard rule, but most of the time, if it's got a number in it, it's a state road. So like 313, 31W, 62, those are 1600. Those are going to be state roads. And I know a lot of times people are like, that's a narrow little windy road. Yeah, but believe it or not, that's actually a state road.
Yeah, and another thing you can do is piggybacking off of what you are talking about, going to our website. On our website, we've got a what's called a searchable map. It's under GIS, and you can look in there, and it's searchable. So when you pull that up, you can turn on different layers. There's a layer in there that shows county roads, and all of our county roads are marked in black. And I use it all the time on some of these roadways. I'm like, I'm not really sure if that's ours or not. So I'll pull it up and use that to look, and it'll tell you, you just look for the black line. And then you can turn on and off the city. So if you're not quite sure where you are, you can pull up a city map and go, okay, yeah, I'm actually in E-town. This is the edge of E-town. There's a lot of information on that lap. There's a thing called blue line streams. You can see whether that creek going by your house is considered a protected stream or under blue line coverage. The other ones too is there's a FEMA map out there, and you can go to that and you can type in your address, and that will tell you how close you are to a floodplain or if any of your property is on the floodplain. We just have a lot of tools available on our website. It'd be nice for people. There you go, right there.
I think I found it right here.
Yeah,
it does. It has like all the different layers.
Yeah.
With cities and road listings, and I found this site. All I did was Google Hardin County GIS map, and it popped up like right here at hardincounty.gov.com, and then was able to just go to searchable GIS map there. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and you get a lot of information. We actually revised a lot of this web information so it's easier to find a lot of things. Like if you go under engineering, you'll see where ordinances are and what ordinances apply to different situations.
Right. All right. So where does your office sit in the county government? Who do you answer to, and who do you coordinate with?
I answer to the assistant to the judge, Bonnie Cesare. And then, of course, she answers to the judge. So, but I actually work with all three. All three of us work together a lot on a lot of projects. But so ultimately, I report to the judge. And
then you coordinate with pretty much every department. It sounds like road department, public works, planning.
Yeah, and I'm also currently the supervisor over the road supervisor for the road department. So I work with those guys. We're a really tight team. I enjoy working with them. We talk about a lot of stuff, like with LARP. It's their submittal, but we all talk about which roadways should go in and which ones should be held off, and we try to prioritize them together. And with bridges, I maintain watch those, get the reports in, put in. But I always talk to those guys too about where we are on our bridges. So there's no surprises. He's in the road supervisors with us on all the meetings there at the White Mills too. So,
All right. Brian gave me a great.
I want to say also, we've got a brand new road department supervisor,
yes,
Michael Stack. He was the assistant supervisor for a long time. He's been with the county 19 years, literally about half his life. Great guy, and I think everybody's pretty excited. Dwight retired, and I think he was the most logical choice. So we're very blessed to be able to bring him on too.
I guess I didn't know that. He's really good. We had him on the show. He's very knowledgeable. And I either played Little League with him or went to grade school with him, because I remember.
Oh, I can see that. He knows everybody in Hardin County. I was really happy to see him get up to, because all I could do is recommend. And I recommended him to move up to that position. He loves it. He wants it. And you can tell his heart's really digging into this. And we talked through a lot of just different things we're working on to try to improve things for Hardin County.
All right. Well, here's an example Brian gave me that I think's good to just run through real quick. Somebody builds a subdivision on their own private land and wants the road taken into the county system. That's not automatic, is it?
No, if they do it on their own, it's not likely you're going to get that in. I'm not even sure Hardin County has a process for that. In Bowling Green, we've got a process, and it'll cost you quite a bit of money to have that, because we'll core your roadway every so many feet. We'll see if you meet the minimum design standards for that. We'll look at your stormwater design. We'll see if you meet your requirements for that. Even in private developments, they still have to go through the stormwater requirements. So at least you'll have that out of your way. But it's highly recommended, if you're going to design, or if you want to build a subdivision, you want to go through plan and development first. And then we all meet and we'll talk, and then you hire an engineer to make sure you meet the qualifications for safety, for the roadway design, make sure that you're meeting the requirements for stormwater. And there's another aspect to this. If you're building a subdivision and you don't have what's called EPSC, silt control, things like that in place, you can get yourself in some pretty serious trouble. So I highly recommend go through the process if you want to do that. Now, if you've already done it, we're working on some possibilities of taking stuff in, but we don't really have an official process for that year.
All right. Let's move on to the White Mill Bridge. I have a few questions about that. Since you know everything that's going on with that, I want to spend some time on something. And that's a lot of people, I know it's on a lot of people's mind, just because maybe we were talking earlier if it's a historic bridge or not really sure. But it's historic in people's mind at White Mill.
Right.
For folks who haven't heard, walk us through what happened with that.
Well, the state does inspections for all of our bridges. We have 37 of them, and we had 38, but E-Town took one of them during the annexation. And what they do is not all of our bridges get inspected every year, but certain ones will get inspected every year. Some will get inspected every 2 years, and some will get inspected every 4 years. Well, this happened to be an inspection by the state of White Mills. And so we went, and they immediately called us, let us know, we're going to close this down, protect the bridge. We had a couple of things that came up. And so we met with them, we talked with them. I've been sending emails back and forth. And what's nice with the structural engineering background, I understand exactly what she's talking about on this. And we wanted to make sure we had the exact details before we let stuff out to the community to let them know. Our number one priority is to maintain that bridge. We want to do everything we can to keep it around for as long as we can. And I think the community there is 100% behind that. But now comes the harder part. We have to look and see how best to preserve the bridge. Because in 2012, they replaced a couple of members. And now here we are with two other members that didn't pass the inspection, and we're looking to have to replace those. And then we're also looking at some additional stuff down on the bridge. We asked the state for some additional guidance on what they were seeing out there. And so that we actually met with 6 bridge inspectors this week, and we went out to the site, and they climbed all over the bridge looking at all the details and to figure out what they could do and how to proceed. And they didn't see any additional information that they could provide. I mean, nothing else came up that was missed on their initial inspection. So now we've got a firm out of Lexington we're talking with that specializes in restoration of steel structures. And they do these kind of bridges all the time. And we want to talk to them about what our options are. And we have several different options. The one is we really do want to maintain the bridge, but we don't make the final choice on where the money comes from and how on all that. And we are looking for money sources, things to try to help us pay for restoring this bridge. Hope that catches everybody up for what we got so far.
But
so
again,
we'll just set.
it is currently closed to all traffic,
Yes.
including pedestrian. There are barriers there. Please do not go on the bridge. We don't believe there's any immediate imminent concern, but this is, again, out of an abundance of precaution. We want to keep everybody safe. We want to keep that bridge if it's at all humanly possible. And I don't think anybody, nowhere in county government is anybody saying, well, it's kind of old. I've had a lot of discussions with a lot of departments and a lot of the stakeholders and the folks that handle our finances, and none of them have said, well, we should probably just let it go.
Right.
I really feel like Mark said, of all the many options, that would be just because there's just no other choice and we don't have any choice and all that. But with the White Mills days comes in the fall, and they have the big duck race and they do all those things. I know that's going to look a little different this year because we probably will in no way, shape, or form be able to have that back open by then. But, we just want people to understand it's a lengthy process and it takes time, but we're being super safe and super smart about it. And we all want to keep the bridge.
Well, and to piggyback off what Brian's saying too, as far as preserving the bridge, the reason we have the barriers to keep no additional load on it. The reason we're asking people to stay off of it is because we don't want any kind of real loading on that bridge at this point. We're trying to keep it where it is now. We don't want any additional damage to the bridge because it just makes it worse and worse. Some people may have seen us out there. There was, quite a few of us on the bridge, and we're looking at a close-up look of what's going on out there. But again, we've heard different people got out on the bridge. We'd recommend just kind of staying off of that. We're trying to preserve that where it is right now.
And if somebody was to get hurt and fall on the bridge, that could make your job a lot harder, right?
Well, you don't want anybody to, like, if something happened and it caused them, you don't want them out on it. We're all professionals out there. And so we kind of watch for all that. And of course, they are all used to being on these bridges. So,
well, I just meant like citizens, if they just thought, I'm going to go get on that bridge, but you may do some damage. Maybe you don't damage the bridge further, but maybe you injure yourself or something. And then that probably, I don't even know what that process would look like, So if the goal is for us to keep that bridge around in the future, then please just stay off of it, right?
Right.
For now.
And that's all we want is just keep people off of it. That's why it's all blockade. You can't drive around. You got a big stone blockades on both ends. We got signs that say bridge out, and then we got signs in advance warnings, that let you know the bridge is out ahead. Yeah. And as far as rerouting, it's not like a long distance to actually just go around. It's 1 point something miles. So
that's
I think the way that town's laid out, it's interesting. It's almost like there's two roads, and it's on each side of the bridge. So if like you live, work, and do business over by the church camp, you're probably only going to come in and out that way. And the same at the other road, where more of the White Mills proper is, the city itself. Again, if you're on that end, mostly you're going to come in and out that other road. So it is inconvenient. It is a headache. Obviously, it's something people really enjoy, and it's such a unique and beautiful thing. We're not saying it doesn't matter, but the good thing is it's not some 10-mile route that's out of the way to really inconvenience everybody.
And two, something we noticed that Google has a bad habit of routing people through the quickest route, which is a good thing. But in this condition, like we were going out the other day and we pulled it up, Google takes you right over it. And so people are not from this area, like with delivery trucks, stuff like that. They might just see the Google. They may pay no attention to the tonnage sign back then. And it could have caused, one of those could have went across it in the middle of the night or at any time and caused this to kind of stress out where it did.
I'm sure the flooding didn't help either.
We looked at that, and it actually put a lateral load to our bridge, and that was a lot of loading. And you'll see, and the state was really great about right after that happened, they came out and looked at our bridge, and they let us know there's some debris there, and the road department was great about coming out and removing some of that debris off the bridge, because some of these bridges are not solid, so they got to have a little flex. And if you got something blocking that flex, you put an impact of force that wasn't really designed that way. So you want to try to, so they did great about that.
Well, that raises a question that I had honestly never thought about until Brian and me talked about it yesterday. What makes a bridge a bridge? there's culverts, there are big drains, structures. What actually makes a bridge versus like, just a culvert you drive?
Well, the way that the state defines a bridge, and they'll do inspections for us, is anything longer than 20 feet. And that's the clearance area of the bridge. I mean, it could be much longer than that, from road to road. It just goes out into the roadway. But the minimum distance is 20 feet. So anything that's bigger than 20 feet, they consider a bridge. Some counties actually consider culverts their bridges. Like the box culverts, anything that's not in a pipe, they consider that a bridge. I think one of the counties not far from here has 128 bridges, but a lot of those are culverts. Where if we counted culverts, we'd probably be up that many. And our road department does a lot of the maintenance on those, anything like that. I think we lost it for a second.
Yeah. I've been having some issues with this system. I think I need to start looking at a couple others. The stability has been suspect,
We should have state come and do an inspection on the stability.
Of my thing.
Yeah.
But that's good. Let's I think that was a good enough answer, because I did hear you say 20 feet. And I want to keep moving here because we got a few more things to cover. Quick check-in before we keep rolling. If you started subscribing at hardinlocal.com at the top of the show, did you go find a confirmation email and click the link? Because if you didn't, that's a step everyone misses. And if it's not in your inbox, check your spam or your newsletter tab, move it over, click the join link to confirm. And if you haven't started yet, hardinlocal.com, hit subscribe. It only takes a minute. Okay, let's get back to it. This topic is segment 3, which I just called How Roads and Bridges Get Prioritized. And I think we're just going to primarily focus this, since we've already been going for 40 minutes on the grading system, because I'm pretty sure you probably know some stuff about that. So everybody thinks their road should be next. How do you actually decide which roads and bridges get fixed or replaced? I hear there's a grading system.
There is. Originally, we're doing it internally, but we wanted to try to step away from that and let a third party be our determiners. And what we did is we contracted out with Lincoln Trail, and they did what's called a PCR, pavement condition review. And they went out to every single road in Hardin County, and they developed a scoring system for us. And that's based on the overall condition of the road. Sometimes a road looks awful, but structurally it's really solid. Sometimes a road it looks okay, but underneath it's in really bad shape. And a lot of it depends on what kind of surface it goes over. But we rank those, and the worst ones, the longer a road doesn't get treated with new asphalt or reconstructing or stuff like that, the worse it gets. If you can imagine clothes like an old metal clothes hanger, and you work that back and forth, it breaks. And so what you want to do is try to catch it before it breaks. And so as these roads get older and older, we want to try to look at those. And we've got a list of all of our roadways and what condition they are and what we need to do for each one. And then for bridges, like I was talking about earlier, when I first came on, I started grabbing all the old reports from 2021 forward, and I started putting them in their own categories and ranking them. And then I started developing an ongoing sheet that takes the bridges and takes the latest report. So sometimes if they're 4 years old, that stays on my little spreadsheet as the last report that we got for that bridge. And then we got things that come from the state that tells us what kind of health condition they are, what kind of structural condition. And so I try to rank those. We got some I call red, which are poor. We got some fair ones, which are kind of right in the middle, and then we got some good ones. Right now, we got 4 poor bridges left. We took care of one of them with Meeting Creek, and that's scheduled to let go in January. Right now, our biggest holdup is the railroad department, but that's all. We track all of that stuff to make sure we're fair. And as far as you might see a roadway, it looks like really, really bad, and it doesn't get it where we go over to another one and get it. That's based off the ranking system that they reviewed and gave to us. You're muted. I lost the audio with you.
Well, then I'll just ask you, because Phil seems to be muted for a moment there. So you mentioned railroad. Railroad crossings, when a road goes over a railroad, those are not the county, the city, or the state's responsibility. Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, normally for most of our roads, if our road goes over a railroad or crosses a railroad, there's a thing that they have that's been in place, I think, since the late 1800s, where if the railroad was there first and we put a road over it, then that is their right of way. And by our roadways crossing it, we're actually going into the railroad's right of way in order to go to cross that. For example, in Bowling Green, we closed, the railroads wanted us to close the roadway. We weren't closing right of way. The railroads were closing their access to the right of way. So by doing that, they closed off our road. Same thing with bridges. A lot of our bridges that go over railroads are a railroad company. Now, it goes back to who was here first. Most of these things are bridges, the railroads were here first. Like Meeting Creek, there's a big discussion as to whose that is because it looks a lot like a railroad built by the railroad company, but we're taking care of that. The state's actually taking care of that for us.
Well, then you have situations. Are you back with us, Phil?
Yeah, my mic went dead, so I had to pull a freshly charged one out.
Well, we'll get back to letting Phil run his interview on his show. We just kept it going for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know what happened. That was weird. Let me turn my volume up. All right, there we go. All right, now let's go. And I had some other questions, but what I was saying was next time we have you on next year during season 2, I'd like to have a deeper conversation about how the railroad changes things because I know that's interesting to me, but we don't have time to talk about it today.
It is, and they've got incredible amount of rights over a lot of local people.
They really do. I think people would find that interesting that they probably don't even know. Now on technology, I'm going to skip down to the last segment 4, because I think people will find some of this interesting. Technology in your work. Let's talk tech because I'm a nerd, and because this has changed a lot. Drones are a big part of the work now. How are you using them?
Well, with drones, they actually save us a lot of time, man hours. Man hours is money, and so if we got a drone flying up over a site, like for example, our next door neighbors at 250 Provident, that's our property too. And so when we wanted to check that for our segmentation control, we'd fly our drone over. And the amount of man hours it would have taken to walk that site, and then you take pictures and all that, and you're trying to get different angles, we can be up there flying it, take a ton of video, a ton of photos, and be done in 30 minutes with the entire site. And then we've got documentation we can present to people. We looked at another subdivision recently, and we drone flew it, and then we were able to meet with the contractor the first time we flew out and go, okay, this is what's going on. And we talked about a resolution to it, and then we flew it again to kind of make sure that he was doing what all he talked about. And then we also have drones, the state, when they come out and do a bridge inspection, they actually, a lot of times they just drone fly it to kind of have a plan of attack or where they want to look in more detail. And then for drones too, EM, Emergency Services, uses them for rescue and stuff. So they're a very powerful tool, excluding all the software we're running in the background too in the office. Like right now, I've got spreadsheets everywhere.
Yeah. And I know there's also a lot of technology behind the GIS. For folks who have never heard the term, and specifically from like software and how does the county use that?
Well, like earlier you showed that searchable, that's done by our GIS department. When he was here, now we hire that out through Lincoln Trail. But when he was here in the office, he developed all those maps were done by our GIS department. They pull in information from a lot of different sources. We work with the state. We get what's called shape files from them. We work with the tax department. Like we set up maps for them so they can just go in and see where they are. During the last flood in April, Lori is the one who puts in the data points where the addresses are, but Nick was able to develop an application so when our search and rescue guys are out there with their cell phone, they could look at their cell phone and say, well, there's a house over here, but we can't see it. And so they could see, it's behind the tree lines. And so they could take their boat around to that where the house is supposed to be. So it was helping with a lot of locations. It's got your address on there. And then too, if you're curious as what your closest recycle trailer is, you can look on that website, put your address in, and it'll tell you the closest one.
Maps are pretty cool things, and especially in this day and age that we live in now. It's crazy the things you can do with technology. Anyway, I want to wrap things up because I know we said we'd go about 45 minutes and we're a little bit over. But before we wrap, one thing that we mention every month because it matters, RAVE alerts. It's how the county reaches you fast when something happens. Sign up at hardincountyky.gov. Brian, anything road or weather specific folks should know RAVE can do for them?
Well, if we say we had a bridge go out, we sent a RAVE alert out. If a big sinkhole opened up, we had to close a road, they put that out. Also, Text My Gov is a great way to stay informed on things and to let us know about things. If you see a missing sign, a stop sign gets knocked over, send us that through Text My Gov. And if you're not sure how to find any of these things we're talking about, that handy dandy website, hardincountyky.gov, all the things are on there, and it's very easy to navigate. Heck, we won an award last year for how great that website is. So.
Website, and I put some links into the comments of the stream, so you can find their Facebook page. You can also find that GIS section of their website. It's all there. So, Mark, for residents who got a question for your office, what's the best way for them to reach you all?
Well, he just mentioned Text My Gov. We get messages on that too to our department. And actually, we share a lot of stuff with the road department, and we'll kind of pick which ones. And our code enforcement officer also watches that. You can call us, but the easiest way to get hold of me is to just send me an email. It's just so much easier because I'm in and out of the office. Sometimes people call, and I'll call them back later, but it's always easier to just send me an email, and we respond to those.
And you can find those email addresses on hardincountyky.gov website. There's a staff directory there, which I use it extensively when we're doing this show to figure out who I'm talking to and whatnot. And it's very easy to use. So just go to hardincountyky.gov and find the staff directory, and you can find Mark's email address there. All right. Before we go, if you didn't get a chance earlier, let me walk you through subscribing to Hardin Local one more time. It's free and takes about a minute. Go to hardinlocal.com, click subscribe or join, give us your name or email. Now go to your inbox, find the email from us. If it's in spam or junk, move it to your main inbox and then click on the link to confirm. And that's all you got to do. That's all it takes. You're subscribed for free with access to subscriber-only content, our weekly newsletter, and notifications on everything coming up. Do it today so you never miss a thing from us. Mark, Brian, thank you. This is one of those jobs that quietly holds the whole county together, and it's been great to finally put a face to it. Thank you guys. And follow Hardin County Government on Facebook. Here is the link, just so you can see. It's in the comments, so all you got to do is click on comments of this live stream on YouTube or on Facebook and find that link if you don't want to just type in. The main thing to remember is just make sure you go Hardin County KY. That'll make sure you get to the right place.
Because there are other Hardin counties in other states.
There definitely are.
One of them has an Elizabethtown in it.
Yeah. I don't think I realized that. But
Yeah, there's a lot of confusing stuff goes on out there.
All right. Well, keep an eye on their social media department and for updates, and make sure you turn on their little notification thing too. They also have a great YouTube channel where they stream a bunch of different content where you can go follow that too. And if you enjoyed today's show, follow us wherever you're watching. Find every episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, at hardinlocal.com. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you next month.
See you, everyone. Should have do the left hand.